Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. Can you hear us? Oh, Big Hugh Art is here. Turnings by Turner, Stefan, Broke Girl Aesthetic, Junk Shack Baby. I just want to say that I am over the moon, excited to have my shining star, Learn the Conjurer, as guest on my live stream tonight. Yay! Everybody give it
Yay,
up.
thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to being live with you for a long time. It's been awesome.
Yes, likewise.
Tonight is not only a full moon, it is also the super blood flower moon, which I just found out about today. And anybody know what that means? It means it is the last supermoon total lunar eclipse for more than a decade. So that's pretty cool, pretty monumental that we are sharing it tonight, I think. So maybe I'll put a link in the description box below this video when I upload so you can check out the little video that talks about the blood moon, because I think that's pretty cool. Oh, Tevil's Treasure is tonight too.
Hi,
Awesome,
Tevil.
ladies. Oh, love anything art. So Learn, you know the little joke I was telling you the other day? My channel name is called Discovering the Art of Living. So that makes me live. But you know what? It gets even better because we have Love Anything Art tonight and Learn The Conjurer. So we have Live, Love, and Learn. Awesome.
Somebody print that out on a Cricut.
You should. So I must say I have to step up my costumes now that I have all these amazing guests on here, because I kind of threw together my tinfoil moon hat here.
Listen.
I've got my Edgar Allan Poe moon shirt, which I got in Baltimore when I was there. Got a little moon pin going, little moony earrings going here. So there you go. Love Anything Art says she loves it.
Oh, thanks, lady. I'm so happy to see so many of our artistic friends are here. Hi, guys. And to be perfectly honest with you, Sue, I think that your headdress couture is perfect for the season.
Well, you know, if a zombie apocalypse or a lightning storm, I might get zapped by the aluminum foil. You know,
we do not want that. That is too much action for this live stream.
Exactly. So do we want to talk about lunar lunacy before we start painting?
Yes, I would love to, because all I'm doing right now is holding up my very blank picture. So,
yeah. Well, most of my pictures back here too.
Yes.
Also known as the Transylvania effect.
In case you didn't know. And there's a reason why it's called that. I, for one, with my very theme appropriate handy dandy notebook, managed to write down a few notes about lunacy. So first of all, I'm sure several of us have heard of the term where someone has like walked around saying, oh, there must be a full moon out tonight because the people are crazy. And I think that many of us have heard that before. And I actually found quite a few fun facts about full moons and lunacy. My information is coming from scientificamerica.com. So take with it what you will, but I feel like that's a pretty legitimate website.
I think so.
So I'm going to start out with a quote from William Shakespeare. He says, "It is the very error of the moon. She comes more near to the earth than she was, and makes men mad." So even William Shakespeare,
I have that as the first thing I was going to say too, the exact same quote. So great minds think alike.
Hey. I love it. Yes. And I couldn't help but write that down because it makes so much sense. And truly across the centuries, you know, people have been thinking that the moon does control how we feel and our behaviors. But the word luna, which is Spanish for the moon, is also the descriptive word for the Roman goddess of the moon. So in case anybody didn't know that, but it's also short for lunatic. So these words do come together, don't they, Sue?
They certainly do. And that was the second thing I was going to say too. They're just too funny.
Well, please go ahead and you
They're
talk.
insane.
You talk now if you want.
No,
I won't
go
say
ahead.
everything.
No, you keep going.
Okay. So the Greek philosopher Aristotle actually claims that the brain is the moistest organ in our body. And because of the way that the moon controls the tides, henceforth our brain would also be controlled by the moon. So I do think that that's quite interesting that Aristotle would say something like that. Now, of course, the belief in the lunar lunacy effect, or as Sue has said, the Transylvania effect, the reason why the Transylvania effect was dubbed was because in the Middle Ages, back then, people believed that those that ran around mad during the full moon were actually vampires and werewolves in disguise. So that's kind of fun because I did do a video about vampires in one of my Conjuring Canvases episode, and that was one of the things that I did talk about. So I do think it's funny that it comes full circle. But today, people do believe in the mythical powers of the moon. For example, because just as Sue said, there is a super blood flower moon going on. People that are New Ageism or witches or whatever you might find that believe in worshiping the moon, they go about very extreme rituals. By extreme, I mean they're doing a lot. They're meditating. They're writing down things that they intend to burn in order to release to the moon in order to give itself power. These forms of manifestations that can almost be a form of witchcraft, which much of it is. So it's interesting that today even people do believe in that, and it kind of goes a little bit into a religious viewpoint. Yeah.
Well,
that's all I'll say about that.
There is some truth to the fact that perhaps people go mad during a full moon. And Charles L. Raisin was a psychiatrist, and he claimed that back in the day, before there was electricity and street lamps outside, there were a lot of people who were homeless that roamed the streets, maybe slept there overnight, and probably suffered from some form of mental illness. And during the moon, the extra bright light would cause them to have sleeplessness and be sleep deprived. And it is an actual fact that a lot of mental illnesses the symptoms are exacerbated by sleep deprivation. So it is quite possible that some of these poor people were more irrational or more violent than normal. So there is some truth to the fact that maybe the full moon does kind of, make us act a little more differently than we normally would.
Yes. And
so
I
science.
There is some science behind that. I completely agree with that, Sue. I mean, people would argue that the full moon is something that triggers in us different strange mental behaviors. And for some of us, just as you said, that might have those symptoms, they'll come out even stronger during these times. There is a lot of science out there to talk about this, though. So if you do want more scientific information about exactly what happens to the human body during a full moon, I highly recommend looking it up. Scientific America was actually very forthright with this information. As whimsical as they were when they were first giving me all this information about Aristotle and lunar lunacy, they did break down the science of it. So I'm glad that you said that, Sue. That's very true.
I found this whole topic was very, very fascinating, and I could write pages and pages on it, but I am yearning for some learning. So did you want to maybe talk about your asylum of choice?
Yes. I would love to do that. I would absolutely love to do that. I will say before I start talking, I can't quite see if anyone is commenting, so I apologize. If anyone says anything and I don't say anything back, it's not because I don't.
Here we have crafting in Mimi's world. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
Here. Awesome. Lots of amazing supporters here tonight.
Yes. I'm so thankful for just all of our friends coming out here and all the people I haven't met before. Hello. Yes. So to kind of let's talk about the word asylum. Now, most people back in the olden days, and when I say olden days, I'm talking the 1800s. most people would define an asylum as, instead of calling it that, they would say that it was a hospital for the insane, or the lunatic
Right.
hospital is what they would say. Now, Sue and I did talk about this, and we both are very sensitive to people with mental health issues. I definitely am sensitive to that, and I believe that no matter where you are in the world, it's important that we try to help one another with something like that. And we want to remain respectful. So right out the gate, that's what I'm going to say. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So please forgive me if I say anything that has to do with a triggering word that could talk about mental health in a poor way. It really is because my notes reflect words from the 1800s. I don't actually believe in this.
These are actually historical things that we've found. They're not our opinions necessarily.
Yes, that is very correct. And and that said, we don't know if anyone watching. I'm sorry, Sue?
No, I was just going to say that, like you said, we don't want to offend anyone that does suffer from mental illness, and this is just historical facts that we're talking about here.
Yes, very true. So that being said, there was a quote unquote crisis of mental health that apparently exploded in the 1800s. Now, here's what I have to say about that. I don't think that mental health all of a sudden started in the 1800s. I think everyone here can agree with that, right?
Right.
We as people and humans are still trying to understand medicine to this day, and we're still trying to figure out how the brain works. Nothing is perfect in medicine, and so when it comes down to the construction of mental health, we're still trying to figure out a lot. But apparently, from my research, in the 1800s, there was a huge boom of asylums all of a sudden. There were asylums everywhere, and they were made to counteract the mental health crisis that was not only happening in America, but happening really everywhere. America did have a lot more than most other countries, according to my research.
Yeah.
And I found some conflicting information. Some of the information that I found said it was mostly because of mercury poisoning. We've all heard of the story of the Mad Hatter, for example.
Yeah.
That's an example of that. But realistically here, what we're talking about is the fact that there was a boom of it. So all of a sudden, people needed to, quote unquote, commit their family members or loved ones to these facilities. But the problem was not a lot of people knew how to handle this issue. So
yes,
it was a very new issue that people were running into. People didn't really know how to handle these people that didn't know how to handle themselves. So that's the kind of sad part about most asylums, actually, if not all of them. They were ill-equipped to deal with what they had taken on. As a matter of fact, the asylum that I chose to speak about is one that was erected by a man, of course, but a woman was the one advocate for speaking about mental health and how they needed to properly treat the patients and how training needed to happen, which was something that wasn't happening in any other asylum in the day. So
a lot of times they just wanted to treat the symptoms.
Yes, and we're going to use the word treat in very loose terms because
deal with the symptoms, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. So that said, the asylum that I'm speaking about is Danvers State Mental Ward, Danvers State Lunatic Hospital, or Danvers Asylum. It's known under several names. So I'm sure if you were to Google search Danvers, you'd find it right away. But Danvers is indeed the asylum that I'm talking about. And Danvers was originally constructed in 1878. It was opened May 1st, 1878. So we're basically celebrating a little bit past their anniversary.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And Danvers, the interesting thing about Danvers was that the gentleman who was the superintendent of the quote unquote hospital, because that's what they were calling him, was the superintendent of the hospital. He had been a wild renowned mental health doctor from Connecticut. And he weirdly was only a superintendent there for 2 years. He retired right after. And
Suspicious.
I believe it might have been because of the fact that he himself couldn't handle all of this, because he dealt with mental health, but to what end? You know, it's
Right.
hard to say. Our research can only tell us so much. But he was a superintendent for only that long. But the whole point of Danvers was they wanted to treat the patients, they wanted to show them empathy, and they wanted to actually train nurses and doctors to properly treat these people for the coming ages. So here we had Danvers. Now I'm going to put my painting down for just a moment.
Which is in Massachusetts, correct?
Yes, in Danvers, Massachusetts. Danvers is in Massachusetts, and apparently it was only 18 miles away from Boston, and you could actually see it from the hilltop, which was interesting.
And we went there on vacation, and that's how I pointed that out.
Oh, wow, really?
We went to Salem a few years ago. We ended up staying in Danvers in a creepy, creepy hotel. And then afterwards, when I got home and started researching it, it said that was the site of the Danvers asylum.
Wow.
Creepy. Yeah.
Okay, but I want to hear more about that as soon as I'm done explaining it, because I want to hear more all about that. Now I'm just referencing my notes just so I don't properly incorrect say something.
Yes.
But the first version of my notes comes from the actual danversstatehospital.org. So can't get more legit than that.
Actual. Yeah, exactly.
So the hospital did open on May 1st, 1878 to Dr. Calvin S. May, who was the superintendent that I just spoke about for only until the year 1880. The hospital remained in function until the year 1992. So over 100 years, it had been training, or not training, but it had been treating people. And then it was demolished in 2006. The Danvers State Hospital had once occupied a site of over 500 acres, which is massive.
Wow, that's huge.
Very, very huge. Now, Danvers Asylum once did occupy the hilltop of over 500 acres from Boston, Massachusetts, which was 18 miles away, just as we just discussed. But it was the area around it was variously known as Hawthorne Heights, Porter Hill, and even Dodge Hill. Now, when it was purchased in 1874, the land itself, it was all oak, pine, and apple orchards. So that is something to be said, is that it was a giant, big rural area. And the reason why they chose that area was because they felt that it was a healthy choice for not only the patients, but also the citizens of the nearest town. They felt like in being a rural area and there not being a lot of people around, it would be safe for everyone involved.
Exactly. Yeah. Try to hide everyone away.
Yes, exactly. Now, the hospital did include both male and female wards. So there was a segregation on gender. And the medical staff did also stay respectably male and female. They also did have cottages, repair shops, farm buildings, all sorts of places, even a cemetery. So, all dark. Now, when Danvers closed in 1992, it closed due to budget cuts. But the town was actually a pretty antisocial population by that time because no one really came anywhere near Danvers. So that being said, yeah, like, and you can't necessarily blame them.
That's true.
Yeah, you really couldn't. You couldn't blame people for not wanting to necessarily be near an asylum. But that being said, the importance of mental health was still really strong for Danvers. Now, back in the 1800s, there was a woman named Dorothea Dix who actually was the main mascot and the main driver behind mental health in Danvers. She was not a hospital staff. She was not somebody who was a nurse. She was not someone who was like medically trained. She just felt really strong about them properly treating mental health. And she was kind of the reason for this being the very first asylum on the East Coast to start training medical staff. So,
very good.
Yay, women.
Yay, yes. Girl power.
Yes. Now, we're moving on a little bit to some other forms of information that I did find. This comes from patch.com. In 2006, against protest, majority of the hospital was demolished and apartment buildings were built in the land's place. Now, yeah, right. We'll just tear it down and build apartments in the middle of rural nowhere. That'll bring people in. Sure.
It'll be nice and haunted.
Well, it's funny you say that, Sue, because mysteriously in 2007, all the apartments burned down.
Ah, coincidence? I think not.
Right. I don't know. I don't know, but that doesn't seem very kosher to me. So clearly something's weird. Now, that being said, they did rebuild these apartments, and they still stand to this day, but they are farther from the original area that they were built.
Understand.
Now, of course, the funny thing is that these apartment buildings were built basically right near the cemeteries of the hospital.
Spooky.
Yes. So a lot of people did think that that could have been the cause. If you're being superstitious, why would you build these brand new buildings right on top of a cemetery?
Yeah.
I'm going to quote Poltergeist and say, you moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies.
Yeah, you never know.
So not kosher. Now, here's where things get nice and paranormal and dark. Now, according to hauntedrooms.com, I know something I do best. According to hauntedrooms.com, you can now do ghost hunts in the one remaining building in Danvers. Wow. Who here wants to do that?
That's on my bucket list.
Well, actually, Sue, I will tell you that this is the one group that is allowed to be there because apparently hundreds of ghost hunters have tried to do ghost hunts in this building, but they were quickly ushered out. Like it's considered it's trespassing. So this is the one group that's allowed to do it. Yes. So that being said, people I'm sure are wondering, well, it's got to be haunted then. If you're doing ghost hunts, it's got to be haunted, right? You would think. According to this website, all right, this website that does the ghost tours, they claim that Dr. Walter Jackson Freeman II, that's very wordy, performed several lobotomies that apparently did not go well. Now, I'm gonna stop my notes for just a moment and go back to my painting to talk about lobotomies because I'm sure you can say some stuff about this too.
Maybe I'll grab a snack while you're talking about lobotomies.
It's a perfect time. Everybody hungry?
Grossing everybody out. They're like, oh, no ghost hunting for me. I just want to say hi to Money Tree, who's joined us, and the Sinister Files, who's probably taking notes on all of this.
Hi, Sinister Files. Yay! He's a very good friend of mine.
Is he? Awesome.
Yes.
Not to interrupt, but our Fort Henry that's in Kingston also, they actually had, I don't know if it was Ghost Hunters, but it was something similar, that kind of a TV show that actually went and hunted some ghosts at Fort Henry, and they said it was the scariest place they had ever been.
I believe
my hubby and I did a ghost walk there at night, and it was pretty intense.
What happened when you went?
Anyway, you were saying about lobotomies.
Yeah. Great segue.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Sorry, I'm a motor mouth. So basically, this website that is the one who does host these ghost tours, they claim that this doctor was on record for performing most, if not all, the lobotomies within this hospital during the time that that procedure was approved for people to unfortunately get. Now,
yeah.
I would like to think that the majority of our viewers that are watching us right now know what a lobotomy is, but in case you don't know what a lobotomy is, to put it
Please
simply,
tell us.
Sorry about it. I'm sorry, everyone who probably just came from dinner. So,
Yeah. I thought
so
this was just a paid video.
Like, how can I put this as kindly as I can? It's like taking an ice pick and stabbing your brain and scrambling it around in hopes to make you less insane.
Like an omelet kind of thing.
Yeah, right. Did I say that right? Am I right?
Yeah. Or did they also like, they sort of cut the hemispheres of your brain, did they not? Into two?
Yes. Yes. And oftentimes these procedures would give several different types of effects to the person who received it, obviously. Some people would be fully conscious at the end. Yes. Some people were fully conscious by the end of it, but apparently were quote unquote cured. Some people were made into vegetables, which if you don't know that term, that basically means that you're absolutely catatonic. You really aren't a person
anymore. The Netflix series Ratchet, where she performs the lobotomy with the ice pick. Yeah, that was kind of creepy.
Yeah. There you go. That's a sum up. So there you have it. That's what a lobotomy is. And these things did happen, of course. And these things were pretty common in most asylums. I'm sure that this was also a common practice in the asylum you're going to talk about, Sue.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Now, this doctor, he performed all these lobotomies, and this ghost hunting website claims that you can hear the sounds of the patients crying out for help. You can hear their screams from the lobotomy room.
Oh, nice.
And which is, lovely. And you can also, if you're lucky, according to them, you can see the patients who just went through the procedure walking through the halls looking like a vegetable, unfortunately.
Oh, lovely. Lovely.
Yeah, very sad. Now, I'm saying these things because I want you to take them all with a grain of salt. I understand that some of us are going to be skeptics through and through. Some of us are believers, right? I will also say that the last piece of information that I managed to look up, because obviously I wanted to learn more about ghost stories from Danvers.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds like nice.
Yeah. Sue,
and
there are no
close to
ghost stories.
Massachusetts with the witch trials, there's got to be something supernatural going on there too.
You would think. Sue, there are no ghost stories. I've scoured the internet, can't find one. I can't find one that has any substance to it that makes me feel like, yes, that's obviously what's going on here. I can't find one that, has any substance to it, has any text to back it up. I can't find anything, which is so interesting.
Maybe it's because no one lived to tell the tales.
I don't mean to laugh, but probably. But now that I do say that, there was only one documented apparition that came from Danvers when it was still in operation. So before it was closed in 1992, there was a patient who came out and said that as she was staying there as a little girl, she claimed that a ghost of a woman would come into her bedroom at night and steal the sheets off of her bed, stand there, and just watch her, and wouldn't leave until the sun.
Because I do that too, but that's different. I steal the sheets off the bed too. And apparently you wear them on live streams, so I've seen you wear your sheet.
Yes, that is my ghost costume, and I'm very proud of it.
But it is funny how similar the stories are. Like the Rockwood Asylum for the criminally insane, that's in it's actually in Kingston, Ontario. It's an hour east of where I live. It was built in 1859. They started building it in 1859, and it was actually on Lake Ontario, very scenic, very beautiful, because they thought it would be a calming effect on some of the inmates at the Kingston Penitentiary who might have been a little unstable, shall we say. But the inmates were actually forced to help build this asylum. So they were out there on the chain gang building this beautiful limestone building. And it was so pretty and so scenic, the property and the architecture of it, that it was actually featured on postcards in the 1900s.
Wow.
So come to Kingston, see our loony bin. Isn't it beautiful? Yes.
Oh, no.
They had thousands and thousands of tourists flocking there just to see the beautiful building, the lovely scenic landscape and everything, the lovely, picturesque water. And in a way, I think that was kind of good because it got people to realize that there was a mentally ill population, and they were more aware of maybe how the patient treated. But in future, as the asylum went on in years, people were more understanding of what the patients were going through, and they asked better treatment because it was pretty horrific when they first started out, as you have said.
Yes. Horrific in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that you mentioned too, like when the penitentiary was first being built, they actually did allow the male patients to live in the building, but there were female patients, but they had to live in an abandoned stable that was on the property at first.
What?
So the women were segregated to the stable, the men could sleep outside, but once it was completely finished, the men and the women stayed together. I think they had their separate wards, but they were in the same facility.
Huh.
Which
interesting.
That's the thing.
Very interesting, I'd say.
Yeah. But like we were talking about before, in when the early 1800s, they didn't know a lot about mental illness, so they tried to just treat the symptoms more than the actual disease. So I think their main goal was to sedate the patients so they wouldn't hurt themselves or hurt other people. Yes. So they did do a lot of chloral hydrate procedures, alcohol, and then with the invention of the hypodermic needle, they started giving them morphine and hallucinogenic drugs, things like that, just to keep them sedated and safe, quiet. And they also did procedures such as leeching. They put leeches on them to bleed them so that their evil spirits would come out of them and they would be cured of their insanity, kind of thing. So creepy. Hi, Sons Arts. How are you? Oh, Fish is here too. My son's here, so don't listen to all the creepy stuff.
Sorry.
Like you said, they didn't really know a lot about mental illness, so they were just trying to treat the symptoms, and they would have the patient in shackles again to restrain them so they didn't hurt themselves, and kept them away from the general population so as to not upset them, supposedly, and to keep, the neighborhood clean, kind of thing. But I found a lot of my information on the Rockwood Asylum Museum site in Kingston, which of course was funny because they sort of concentrated on the latter years where they did have, program facilities for the patients and psychiatric evaluations, and they kind of concentrated on the good stuff, but they didn't really mention the stuff that happened back in the 1800s, all the sort of nasty stuff, the lobotomies, the tortures, that kind of thing. Yeah. But, and they actually I found this appalling. Back when they first started, all the poor patients had to wear canvas uniforms. Can you imagine how itchy and scratchy that would, like burlap uniforms, and they had lunatic emblazoned across the front of them. So they actually had labels on them that said lunatic. I guess in case any of them got out, people would know where they came from. And they had little bedrooms that were only 9 feet by 9 feet. They had a single bed in it, just a little bit of a wardrobe. And just like in a prison, they had a little chute that they could slide their tray of food in and out to them. They didn't really have much in the way of rehabilitation. It was more just keeping them quiet, kind of thing. And it was funny that you were saying Danvers was sort of built and established by a woman, This institution was actually founded by our first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald.
Wow.
So not necessarily a good thing. No. And actually, in my notes here, just going to see what year it was. Oh, yes, 1868. They started having non-prisoners in, because at first it was just for the psychiatric hospital inmates that had gone insane. But then they started opening their doors to a variety of people, such as lepers and psychiatric patients and promiscuous women, or any woman that had female troubles, like monthly problems, lactation, anything like that, that they were deemed unfit to be in society, they would be locked up in a mental hospital. So there you go.
That's awful.
But it actually closed in 2000. They finally shut their doors in about, when was it? 1959, though, they stopped using it as a lunatic asylum and opened it more up to people with disabilities, physical disabilities. And then in 2000, the building just got so run down that they closed it. And it's been abandoned ever since. And there's been a couple of people on YouTube that have kind of snuck in after dark and done video of the abandoned asylum. So it'd be kind of interesting to look that up and see some of the footage, because it is really. But I thought this was interesting. In 2019, I found the Toronto Star newspaper did an article on this Toronto singer, and her name is Simone Schmidt, and her stage name is Fiverr. But somehow she got access to the files of some of the women patients back in the 1800s. I don't know if she was trying to write a story on it. And she found that most of the stories had pretty much been erased. There wasn't really much information there. The women were just admitted, and that was it. No, nothing. So she thought, these women really need to have a voice. I need to find out these stories. So she did a lot more research and digging around. And she decided to record an album. And it's called Audible Songs from Rockwood. And it was released in 2017. And I've heard some of the songs are on YouTube, so you can actually check them out. But she decided to write songs about these poor women and their stories and to give them a voice. And I thought this was interesting that a couple of the songs, one's called Waltz for One, and it's about this poor pregnant teenage girl, fell in love, got pregnant, and her father said, no, can't have that. So he made her abort the baby using not necessarily good or hygienic ways. Threw her in the lunatic asylum, and then sued the boyfriend for seduction, because apparently you could do that back in the day. So the song Waltz for One is about that. And then another story called House of Lost Worlds. And this poor woman, I'm not sure why she was institutionalized, but she was put into the lunatic asylum. And shortly after she was admitted, they had tested her and said, oh, you're fit for release, you're fine, you're good to go. But none of her relatives ever came and got her. So she was in the asylum for 30 years and ended up dying in there because no one just came to get her. They just forgot about her. So the singer thought, I really need to tell these women's stories. So she made this album to kind of bring light to it. And I thought that was really a really good thing. And I was thinking of actually maybe getting the album. But it's just women were just locked up and the key thrown away. And
it's sad because that's kind of what happened. You know, people were thrown away. I mean, I'm glad that you said that, because one of the factors that I found that was so incredibly sad, the last note that I wrote about Danvers was that their cemetery didn't have name plots. They had numbers instead. And their numbers were because these people were never claimed by their families, so they didn't know who they were.
Let's see, this place, there was just an abandoned cemetery in the back, paupers' graves. They didn't have any names on them or anything, just numbers.
I'm reading what Sinister Fowl says. It amazes me how they treated patients with mental health problems back then and got away with it. It's insane. Yes, I agree. And that's the thing is I would argue, and this might be a little, saucy, but I would argue that today, yes, we can't do that anymore legally, but we still throw away mental, people that suffer from mental health. We throw them away. Instead of helping people, we want to get rid of them. We want to, push them out of the way. And we are unable to properly give these people the help that they need. And I think it's truly because we don't know how to. And it's really just sad. So I think that if nothing else, when you visit these places or you learn about these places, just like how what you said with this artist who she decided to make an album to, to lift the voices of these women who were silenced for no just cause. This is all we can do now, is try to learn from our mistakes and try to bring forth a better future to those who are going to suffer from this, because it's just sad.
It is. Well, my niece works for substance abuse things, and she works in a lot of hospitals, and she said it was really sad that she would go there and she would find so many young people dropping off their grandparents who suffer from dementia and just leave them at the hospital and run because they didn't want to take care of them. So they would just drop them off, leave them there. Hopefully somebody would take care of them. I think it's sad.
It is sad. And you people wonder why there's so many ghosts.
Exactly. They came back to haunt us, to get their revenge. I don't blame them.
Now. Well, and
so what are you painting there, Lern?
Well, my painting doesn't look nearly as good as yours. Yours is amazing. Mine looks kind of dopey.
What?
Mine looks kind of dopey. You're very kind.
Full moon.
Yeah, I wanted to. Okay, well, here was my vision. Just so everybody knows, my vision was, the full moon in the back, and I wanted to make like a silhouette of like a spirit, but like it be black, and there be like yellow eyes, like it being like the spirit of lunacy, and it's coming out more like a hedgehog. It's really bad.
Like a hot dog. What kind of looks like a little hot dog?
Enjoy my spooky hot dog.
Weenie. There you go.
Tell us about your painting. I love your painting.
Well, it's just I haven't done it yet, but it's just a stock photo that I've got off Pixabay. Have you ever used Pixabay? It's a website.
No, tell me about
if you're an artist, you like to paint, completely free. You don't have to give any royalties, any whatever you want to call it ever, but they have thousands and thousands of beautiful photographs and videos that you can use for painting. So I just have to find one with a wolfie on it here, a wolfie claw in the moon. I'm just waiting for the face part to dry here. It's still a little wet.
Oh, I love it. It almost, I know that it's a claw hand, but it also could be like an evil tree.
Oh yeah, I like it. It could be both.
I'm
I was
super
surprised that Zed didn't show up tonight. Zed got the night off. Zed.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what it is. Zed wants to play out in the full moon, which if you don't know who Zed is,
you've got to watch your videos. They're awesome.
Yes, on my channel, I have a little ghoul friend who sits on my shoulder, and he typically really just loves candy and wants to just talk about scary things.
Yeah. He steals your microphone from time to time.
He steals my microphone from time to time. He steals my camera from time to time, and I let him have it. And him and his friend Bones, who's a little crochet skeleton that I bought at the Muter Museum right before COVID, they have a really nice time making YouTube videos.
I think maybe I need to find a little friend for Zed, so maybe they can have a collab. That'd be fun.
Yeah, like they're like spooky little buddies together. Actually, have you heard of the Muter Museum, by the way, Sue?
I have not.
So
what would that be?
So I think that this kind of goes along to our theme here. The Muter Museum is located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it is, to put it simply, it is a medical oddity museum. So it has a lot of very not safe for the faint of heart displays. So yeah, well, like to kind of like give some very brief descriptions. It has a lot of it was used at first for training medical students, so it's not like it wasn't something to like scare or terrify people. It really was actually for education, and still is. but it houses quite a few specimens, and they have an entire wing that is dedicated to mental health. And it talks about a brain that has gone through, it does have a brain that has gone through a lobotomy. So you can see what that actually looks like if you can't possibly imagine it, which, you know, I'm sure everyone here can imagine how awful that was. But it really was, it was something I always wanted to go to since I was a child. I always wanted to visit the Muter Museum. And I really found it to be just awe-inspiring and something to really learn from, like, what makes us us, but also how fragile the human body is and just what can happen to us. So it's interesting because, of course, when I went to the gift shop, of course, because I have to go to the gift shop in the museum, I had to buy something. And I got a poster, but I saw bones.
Brain, did you?
Huh?
You didn't buy a brain?
No, they wouldn't let me buy a brain. I would have them in the background of my videos if I bought them.
Well, that sounds like something I would actually check out. I have sort of a creepy, warped sense of humor sometimes, or a fascination with creepy things. So it's in Pennsylvania, you say?
Yes, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So it's right in the heart of the city, and it really is just. I spent 5 hours in that museum. I mean,
wow.
It was. When I tell you I couldn't nail down the craziest thing I saw, I couldn't, because there was crazy thing after crazy thing. My friends went to see a museum like that in South Carolina. They said it was awesome. Yes, Purple Pixie. The medical oddity museums are really just wild.
Yeah. I took my son to see the Penitentiary Museum in Kingston, and that was pretty wild too, because they showed some of the torture devices that they had for the prisoners. And one notorious prisoner that escaped, they actually showed, he had glued together all the cafeteria trays and then cut a hole out into it, snuck into it, and got his friend to wheel them out. So it showed all those different kinds of things, but it showed where they were giving them like electric shock therapies. And yeah, it was kind of creepy, but cool.
That's wild.
Kingston's a really, really nice town in Ontario. If you ever get this far, it's really beautiful on the water. A lot of old limestone buildings, not necessarily just psychiatric hospitals, but there was a prison there. Famous Kingston Penitentiary was there, but very scenic, very lovely.
I'd like to visit there someday. I mean, I'd like to go to a lot of places. I have a lot of really interesting and beautiful historic places I'd love to see on my bucket list. As a matter of fact, I guess like the closest place I've ever been that is close to where you went in Kingston is Alcatraz. I visited Alcatraz when I was 14 years old. My parents took me on a trip, and, you know, being the spooky child I said, well, I really want to go to Alcatraz.
Why wouldn't you?
Because who doesn't? So we went to Alcatraz, and the audio tour that I got to do was the best. It really talked us through every single part of the prison, and just as you said, like, it showed a lot of like really dark but also interesting things that was seen in the prison. And one of the things I'll never forget, because you went into the isolation ward, right? Now let's talk about that with mental health. In the isolation ward, in these penitentiaries, they were really, really just unhealthy. I mean, not only were they conditions of just, you know, bacteria was forming, people would get infections, and, you know, people were, yes, oh, just awful. This one former inmate that was on the audio tour that was explaining this particular cell to me, it had me go into this cell, and they shut the door behind me, and it was completely dark. And this inmate is narrating to me his experience being in this same cell. He said, okay, so I want you to go and I want you to sit in the corner. And I sat in the corner, and he said, so I was told that I had to be in isolation for 30 days. Wow. I had no lights. So, and it was true. It was pitch black. Couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I had no lights. I was fed once a day, and I didn't even know where my food was. I couldn't hear anything. I had no sensory, because it was sensory deprivation like crazy. And it got to the point where he said that he started to imagine himself at home watching the baseball games on TV and eating a bag of potato chips. And when they found him, when they finally let him out, he had eaten his shirt whole.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
Wild.
Not too
Just
many people
awful.
could actually go through that experience, so that would be creepy. That would be scary. And to think you only had to do it for what, 5 minutes or whatever the presentation was?
Yep, I was there for 2 minutes, if that, and I couldn't get out there fast enough. I was like, oh, I'm out of here.
Can you imagine if you were honestly like claustrophobic, you'd just go insane. That would be crazy.
Right, because they didn't care about that. They didn't care if you were claustrophobic. They didn't care if you had any phobias of any kind. They just threw you in there because you're a prisoner.
Exactly. Creepy. Oh, Purple Pixie saying that the museum she went to had cross-dissected bodies, brains, tumors, etc. Lovely. Morbid, but interesting. Couldn't look away. It's kind of like the train wreck thing. You got to look at it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you do. But that's the thing is you find those things so interesting because you have to wonder how.
I know. How did people survive that? Or how could people treat people like that? I know. It's awful.
I think that speaking of, like, I know this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but the craziest thing that I saw, well, no, I've seen a lot of crazy things in the Muter, but in the Muter Museum, one of the craziest things that I saw was the world's largest tapeworm. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you what the world's largest tapeworm was. It was in the museum. You could see it.
Yep.
The tapeworm was 7 feet long.
Oh my God.
And had a maximum width of a circumference of 26 inches and weighed a total of yeah, it's huge, and weighed a total of 120 pounds.
Oh my God. And that was inside a human being.
It was inside a human being, and they have a picture of it being inside him before they extracted it. And
wow, poor man, or woman.
Poor man. Yeah. Indeed.
That would just be horrific.
Sue, I think I'm giving up on my hot dog.
Oh, it's a scary weenie. It's a scary weenie.
Scary weenie!
It kind of looks like a little finger. There's a little finger pointing up, maybe.
It's evil.
Did you have some other scary story about Danvers?
Yes.
You were going to ask me about the hotel.
I wanted to ask you about the hotel.
Yes. So we went on vacation to Salem, Massachusetts, because that's somewhere I always wanted to go. And it's actually quite a pretty little town. And then it's got all the witchy stuff. But we couldn't stay in Salem for whatever reason. So I found this cheap motel in Danvers. But okay, whatever. Had a lovely pool. My kids were young at the time. So I thought it's got a pool. It's great. You know, looks like it's in a nice area. Well, we get there and it's a little sketchy looking. And there's all these people, I think, live in the hotel.
Oh.
And they're pushing grocery carts around, smashing them into cars. And I think there's a few drug deals or something going on down the road. Not really sure, but we're like, okay. So we get in and said to the lady, oh, so my kids are excited to be on our vacation. So, you know, could you show us where the pool is? And she's like, yeah, about the pool. Well, I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound good.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's not there now. I'm like, what do you mean it's not there now? I saw pictures on the internet. There's a pool, the lovely in-ground pool. Yeah, about that. So I'm thinking, okay, well, if the pool was just being fixed or whatever, she would have just said, oh, well, the pool's out of commission. But just it was like, yeah, about the pool, we don't use that anymore. So I went back, and it looked like maybe they had been digging up some bodies or something because it was under construction. There was no water in it. It's all ripped up. And I'm like, okay. So we go upstairs into our room, which has like one of those little bifold doors that you have on really cheap closets. And that was sort of our bathroom door. And it was, the windows were kind of sketchy and everything was really kind of gross. And I said to my husband, can we push like the dresser and the bed and the chair up against the door? Because I'm afraid somebody's going to break in. And my older son, I think he was maybe 10 at the time. And my younger son was like 5 or 6. So my older son's looking at me like, oh my God, this is creepy. This is scary. I don't want to stay here. My younger son says, oh my God, this place is beautiful. Look at the paintings on the wall. Isn't this lovely? The red blood walls, they're pretty. And we're all looking at him, and we're like, yeah, it's lovely, dear. It's lovely. So we're like, okay, he's fine. We'll be good. So I slept with one eye open all night. It was kind of creepy.
I bet.
Yeah, and we went down for breakfast every morning, which was dry bagels and cream cheese. And to this day, my older son cannot eat a bagel because he's like, oh, it reminds me of Danvers. It was so gross. But yeah, it was really sketchy.
Oh,
but
I'm so sorry.
We survived. It was a great experience. But like I said, I got home and I was kind of looking up on the internet, and it said, oh, yes, this was former site of the Danvers Lunatic Asylum or Psychiatric Hospital. I'm like, oh, figures. But it didn't really have any paranormal activities. It was just creepy. My son is on here. No, I didn't. He thought it was beautiful.
It's okay. No one's judging you.
He thought it was beautiful that you looked on the bright side of it.
Yeah, I think that's really
seeing the Hilton. You know, it's
good. Young youth and happiness.
It's funny when you were saying that when you were researching, you didn't find any real ghost stories. I didn't find any real ghost stories from Rockwood either. Like I said, there is the YouTuber, I forget what his name is, that did sneak in, and he's got lots of creepy footage of going down the abandoned halls and up into the attic and the cells and everything, but no ghosty stories.
Yeah, and I should preface this by saying that I'm not trying to say that my research is ironclad. There could be information out there that exists that just hasn't really quite made it to the confines of the internet, but I usually, for example, whenever I do a subject matter on, hi Annie. Whenever I do research on a subject matter for hauntings in particular, or like for conjuring canvases, I always look up stories on, whatever entity I'm covering. And I usually find a good array of stuff. And I mean, listen, I'm not saying that my sources are official. I say, take with it what you will. Exactly, thank you, Tevil.
I'm still adding to mine, but I put some splatters on it. Creepy head.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love
Moonlight. That. I like your haunted weenie. He looks cute.
Thank you. I'm gonna call this haunted weenie.
I like haunted weenie. Yes.
I'm gonna draw hot dog buns around him. So yeah, I typically I'll go on places like Reddit and realghoststories.com and all these other places that have almost like a forum set up of ghost stories. And I searched and I didn't really find anything. The closest thing that I found was somebody on Reddit. They actually made a post saying, hey, I'm visiting the one remaining building of Danvers, and I just wanted to know if anyone had a story. And a couple of people commented saying that they had family that worked there, but they never saw anything. No one really gave anything definitive. So I feel like, I'm going to say this, I don't think that sometimes you have to look at it as haunted places are everywhere because it's a creepy place. Like, it's creepy, so it has to be haunted, right? And that's not the case for everything. It just isn't. As much as I would love to see that, it just doesn't happen all the time. Yeah, and when it really boils down to it, everyone, I think, believes in something different when it comes down to ghosts, if they do believe in ghosts. But it's my belief that if an absurd amount of energy is left behind at a spot, chances are something's going to come from it. And
that's true.
I believe Danvers probably does have something there. I don't think it's in that building. I would actually argue that I think that if there's anything attached to Danvers, it's attached to that land. that's
You think?
been demolished. I mean, look at the fact that they literally demolished the entire place around it. They built apartments on it, and quote unquote, mysteriously, the apartments burned down in a year. All of them.
That's fishy.
It's fishy.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is fishy.
You know, and I even looked up if anyone who was staying in the apartments had said anything or had felt anything or seen anything. Couldn't find anything about that either. So very odd.
Have you ever gone on a ghost walk? Do you have ghost walks where you live?
Yes. So I've actually been on several ghost walks, ghost tours, ghost hunts. Where I live, the closest city that I think is popular for that is actually the oldest city in America. It's St. Augustine. Oh, okay. And St. Augustine is a place that I visited a lot. I love St. Augustine. I have seen some things in St. Augustine. That's a totally different video that we can talk about.
I've never actually seen anything myself, but
sometimes it's okay that you don't see anything.
True.
You know, sometimes you can feel things. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to see something. Sometimes you just, you know, like who wants to see a haunted weenie, right? That's one thing. But I feel like when it comes down to ghost walks, the point of these tours and what I really love about them are the tours that are informational as well as point to the history of the place instead of the hokey pokey stuff. I appreciate the history that comes from it. I like that you can paint and hold the canvas at the same time, Lern. Thank you.
The talent she has. Multi-talented lady.
I'm just going to keep holding it. But yeah, what about where you live? Do you have anything like that?
Yes, we have a couple in Belleville that aren't great, but Kingston, the city with the lunatic asylum, has a lot of them. I think we've been in almost all of them because there is the penitentiary there, the maximum security penitentiary, and it is an old city. It was the capital of Canada way back in the 1800s. So there were a lot of hangings and public executions at the prison. So they feel that there's a lot of, you know, spirits around. There's the hospital there, so a lot of bodies were stolen and used for medical experiments back in the day. So there's a lot of history. Like you said, I like the fact that they talk about the history and not just the creepy. But yeah, they're really good. They have people that actually dress up in the black cloak and they've got the lantern and they walk you through the cobblestone streets and they tell you all about the history and the spookies, and it's quite fun.
Yeah, there's I think there's quite a few of those in the same kind of tour in St. Augustine, but there's also a lot of that kind of tour in Savannah, Georgia. I'm not sure if you've ever visited.
I've been to Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah.
I love Atlanta, but Savannah is one that if you've never been, you have to go to it at least once. The history in that city is abundant as well as kind of terrifying. It almost makes me it's kind of like on par with Gettysburg in my opinion, like how I would really love to go see Gettysburg and talk about, you know, and hear about the history that surrounds there. But Savannah does the same kind of thing. They do ghost walks. Now, of course, you are going to have the people that wear the cloaks and have the lantern and go ooga booga sometimes, right? But you know, some of the best ghost walks that I've been on there is some guy in a sweater vest, you know, just taking us around and and telling us the history. And I will say this, if you can, I think nowadays, especially as we are, you know, kind of seeing after a vaccine and after COVID, no, it's never going to be after COVID, excuse me. But, you know, when we are now able to travel, we are able to finally be outside and be around others. These very small, intimate groups of ghost walks are the best kind. If you can find ones that limit the group size to less than 10 people, I highly recommend those.
Yes, very good. Because you can ask questions of your tour guide. You get, like you said, more of an intimate experience. It's awesome. And I think our tour guides in Kingston are doing that. They're doing them by appointment and only having like 3 or 4 people in a group. So something that we might be able to do this summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Purple Pixie had to go, I think. Have to go. Love you, ladies.
Oh, bye.
Yeah. So next week, I am going to have another live because it's my normal live. I was thinking about doing some kind of a games night or a, oh, what do I call it now? Not a murder mystery, but a escape room online. But I don't know if I could do that or not. Think that would be
That's
fun?
fun. Yeah.
So would you
That's so
guys be looking for a games night or an escape room? Let me know in your comments because I was thinking of maybe doing something special because kicking off my June summer movie themed collaborations in June. So hopefully you guys participate. I picked 8 what I thought were kind of classic summer movies, and you can do either DIYs or painting, whatever your thing is. Just has to be in the theme of the movie, which you would think you wouldn't have to say. But the last time I did one at Christmas, I had a few people that it was the movie Elf, and they decided they were going to paint an apple or something, and it's like, okay.
That's funny.
So I think it has to be in the theme. Join us on May 31st. May 31st is Indiana Jones. Are you doing something on May 31st?
Yep, I'm doing it with her.
What are you doing?
Yes, so Indiana Jones and I are going to be live on her channel on May 31st. We are going to be talking about deadly women, and I'm real excited about it. Oh yes. We're gonna talk all about deadly women, both fictional and real life, urban legend style deadly women as well. Of course, Annie and I we bonded very well about everything spooky and creepy. So she already the things that her and I have discussed, I'm very excited about. I'm sure you've noticed I haven't been uploading lately because now that I've been able to see my family and see my friends, I've kind of been trying to, live my life. So, and I think, yeah, I think everyone can understand that. But the nice thing is that I get to be with you today. I get to be with Annie next week. And I'm just so honored again that you asked me to do this with you. And you wanted to do this with me, and being able to host on your channel, like, I think it's amazing, Sue.
So
and you always listen. You always bring the fun. You always bring the charm. I genuinely appreciate you as a human being, and I also love watching your videos. So everything you do, I love.
Well, everybody has to check out Learn because she is an amazing woman too. So funny, so pretty, so cute, so masterful at drawing weenies. But I do have to, no pun intended, I do have to step up the costumes though, because I like dressing up.
Yeah.
Once I can get out to Value maybe and add to my ambiance.
Yes.
But I think you and I sort of bonded over Halloween last year, and then we just sort of stuck together, and I'm so happy you could be on here with me. This is so much fun.
I would love to be with you again if you ever wanted to get spooky again.
Oh, for sure. And you'll have to host sometime. You'll have to get your nerve up and you'll host. And I think Indiana Jones and I are going to do something else again too, but maybe in August, maybe the later the summer, but I'm not sure what that would be. So, any suggestions?
Oh, there's so much that you can do.
Oh, I know. Well, she's another crazy lady that likes to dress up and talk spooky. So maybe we could do a threesome.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so fun.
There you go. I think you can have like 5 or 6 people. That might be fun.
I would have such a great time. Yes, I'm about it.
Yes. Alrighty, group thing. Busy summer for Indy. Yes, yes. And Annie says you have to host. Oh, Cruella might join us on Friday. I did see Cruella DeVille on Annie's latest video.
Fantastic.
Yes. So let's see one last look at your weenie there. Do a close up of your weenie.
There it is. Woo!
My monster arm. I did a little splatter painting on there for some stars. It was messy, but fun.
I love it.
Awesome.
I would hang that in my house.
Maybe I'll mail it to you.
I would love that.
I'm here, $300. I'll send it to you. We were just discussing how much it costs to send things. I would love to have fan mail and send out some of my art to you people, but it's expensive. It's crazy. So but maybe just plain art, not on a canvas, wouldn't be too much. So maybe I'll have to do that.
That would be wonderful.
So are we ready to wrap her up, do you think? Or did you have more stories on your... Did you have more to say about Danvers?
Oh, no, I would say that if you are interested in looking up Danvers and what they have as far as the history goes, the website was quite thorough in what it was talking about as far as the origins of the hospital. There's a lot of information out there, so I highly recommend giving it a nice Google search. But if you're looking for more factual information that comes from the hospital itself, look up danvershospital.org, and that should give you the history, pictures, as well as the archives and records of what the hospital once had before its demolishment.
And I would highly recommend looking up Simone Schmidt. I think she goes by Fiverr on YouTube, and check out some of those wonderful songs that she made to pay homage to some of these poor forgotten women that were just thrown into the asylum and locked away. So I would definitely do that. Oh, the DIY struggle says, what's up? Well, we're just getting ready to sign off. I have to come up with a sign off because you have an amazing thing that you always say at the end of yours.
Which is, you can definitely think of something, I'm sure. You're so brilliant. My gosh.
Something witty, but I want to hear what you say. What do you say to sign up? Okay.
Well, what I say is remember, ghosties and ghoulies out there, whatever one you wish to be. The 3 rules of conjuring: never play alone, never play in a graveyard, and always say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. That was a beautiful send-off, and thank you so much again for being on my show. It has made me over the moon. So there you go.
Over the moon!
You joined us on our blood flower moon. Go out and check it out if it's still out in the sky. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but definitely check that out. And tune in next Wednesday for our games / whatever we're going to do night. So bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.